Good morning, everyone. We're just going to give everyone a couple minutes to join the webinar.
What's going on? Doing great. How about yourself?
Right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Department of Family and Support Services Legal Justice Fund Outreach and Education Services RFP webinar. This RFP released on Friday, August 7th, and the due date for all submissions is Wednesday, September 9th at 12 p.m. Just a few housekeeping rules. Due to the volume of participants, everyone has been placed on mute. Please submit your questions via the questions box and we will respond to questions at the midpoint and end of the presentation. And please also make use of the questions box for any technical issues. This webinar is being recorded and anything stated at this webinar is not intended to change the solicitation document. Any changes will be in writing in the form of an addendum issued by the Department of Family and Support Services. And the purpose of the webinar is to provide information for the solicitation. A copy of the webinar recording will be posted to the DFSS YouTube channel along with the link to the recording, and a PDF of the PowerPoint slides will also be posted to the DFSS webpage on the chicago.gov website under the alerts and or funding opportunity tabs. Please give it up to 5 business days to upload. DFSS retains the right to share a list of registrants to the webinar along with their contact and organizational information at our discretion. At this time, we're going to introduce the team. I'll pass it over.
Thanks, Jillian. Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Neismer. I'm the assigned project manager for the Legal Justice Fund, previously known as Criminal Justice Legal Service Initiative. Excited to have you all with us today. And I will quickly pop it over to our supervisor, Courtney.
Good morning, everybody. Just want to say welcome to this webinar and happy that you all are here, and I'll pass it back to Sarah.
Thank you.
And thank you all for joining this morning. My name is Jillian Black. I am the Procurement Proposal Coordinator here at DFSS. Now that we have done the introductions, we're going to move forward with the purpose of the RFP along with the background, information about the scope and program description, the selection criteria, timeline, technical assistance for applicants in e-procurement, and then one last round for questions. And at this, now that that's said, I'll pass it over to Human Services.
Thank you, Jillian. As we said, everybody, we're so excited to have you with us today. I want to start by saying that there's a lot of words on some of these slides, but I'm going to kind of sum some of this up. It will be available online. There are some slides that I'm going to read word for word, so stay with me. But other than that, we're just going to make sure that you guys get the key understanding, the key purposes, what we are looking for Legal Justice Fund outreach and education. So we're going to start with the purpose. So the overall goal of Legal Justice Fund is to ensure that Chicagoans have access to education and legal aid services to help alleviate barriers to employment, housing, education, and we know all of the collateral consequences to an arrest. The purpose of these program components, so the Legal Justice Fund outreach and education components, is to increase community awareness, engagement, and access to expungement and record sealing services that are available to youth and adults across Chicago. So you're going to see this a couple times throughout the slides, but we want to really emphasize that this RFP will prioritize organizations that demonstrate expertise in community-based outreach strategies. Sorry, I'm going to say that again. Community-based outreach strategies, place-based knowledge of high impacted communities, and we're going to talk about some of those in later slides. Public education on legal rights and processes related to criminal records. So seeing your expertise in being able to educate Chicago residents. And then, of course, engagement of populations disproportionately impacted by justice system involvement. So what do our goals look like? In Chicago, initiatives like the Legal Justice Fund, we're trying to approach these barriers residents face in receiving record relief by pairing free legal services with community-based education. So we feel that these efforts will help close the gap in eligibility and access. One specific note here, guys, this contract is for outreach and education services components only. The legal representation and court services will be conducted through the lead awarded organization of the Legal Justice Fund Legal Services RFP. And as I'm sure you saw, that RFP webinar is later this afternoon. We also want to know organizations can apply for both RFPs. So if your organization is interested in doing both legal services and the outreach and education portion, you are able to apply for both. A little bit of background, guys. We are in a room full of advocates and expertise in this area. So we all know criminal records remain one of the most significant barriers to economic growth in the United States. We know that a lot of individuals are not well informed on how to be able to relieve these records. Right now in the state of Illinois, it's estimated that only 11% of people who could use this service have taken advantage of it, which leaves 89% of some eligible residents that are continuing to face barriers because they have not gone through this process or they're not aware that this process is made available to them, which is a huge part of why we want to make this outreach and education program available. One new iteration as we move forward with Legal Justice Fund into 2027, as I'm sure this whole group knows as well, is the enactment of the Clean Slate Act. And a part of the outreach and education program for Legal Justice Fund will be educating the general public on the Clean Slate Act. So we know January 26th, the state of Illinois passed the Clean Slate Act, which expanded access to automatic sealing and certain criminal records. Now, having met with professionals, having met with advocates, people who are working on the ground, this is a complicated process. We know that some individuals could probably still benefit from going through the traditional expungement and sealing, but what does that look like? And who are those individuals? So when we're talking about bringing in awareness of the Clean Slate Act and education, the efforts funded through this RFP. So we're looking for organizations that are going to be able to dedicate some time to this, are going to be able to clearly explain the difference between automatic sealing, petition-based sealing, and expungement. We want to be able to help residents understand that automatic does not mean immediate or universally acceptable. We want to be able to provide accurate and up-to-date information on eligibility and timelines. As I'm sure many of you know, some of these program components for Clean Slate Act don't even get started until 2029. So what does that look like for residents from now until then? And we want to actively connect residents to trusted legal services providers for individualized guidance. So this will be a part of the outreach and education efforts within this program. All right, target population, guys. Those eligible for services under Legal Justice Fund are open to all residents within the city of Chicago, but we do have a couple priority areas that represent a large share of impacted residents. So respondents of this RFP should provide a comprehensive strategy to outreach and education citywide, with a strong focus on two prioritized community areas, and that being the South Side and the West Side. So again, I'm going to reiterate, Any individual within the city of Chicago that is in need of record relief is eligible for this program. And the awarded organizations will be asked to conduct outreach and education citywide with a stronger focus in higher impact areas as the South and West Side. All right, program requirements, guys. This is kind of the same information that we were talking about earlier, but I wanted to make sure that we real quick summarized that these community outreach and education efforts under Legal Justice Fund is a targeted focus to increase awareness, engagement in the expungement and sealing process for adults and young people. And Jillian, I'll have you just go to the next slide, actually, because how we are going to define these. So community outreach, the selected respondents must conduct outreach activities to ensure they can engage youth and adults in these high impacted areas and provide community educational workshops. So outreach should be, again, conducted citywide and should include, but not limited to, Chicago Police Department stations, public schools, park districts, public libraries, community colleges, events sponsored by local-based providers, job fair, resource fairs, daycare centers, city-funded shelters. DFSS strongly encourages respondents to partner with local community-based organizations to plan and recruit youth and adults as a part of their proposal, which looking to do outreach citywide can be a big ask. So we would strongly encourage that. Another big part of the Legal Justice Fund, y'all, is education and the Know Your Right workshops. So again, selected respondents will need to recruit youth, adults, and family through outreach and education efforts, including Know Your Right workshops, which are an important tool for adults to receive critical information, for youth to understand and build their knowledge, and of course, start to feel their own self-agency and going through this process. Additionally, education efforts should encourage youth and adults to seek legal assistance to teach them these strategies. We are going to ask that these workshops should be facilitated by a trained community navigator that are knowledgeable about the legal system, expungement, sealing laws, processes, pathways. And then of course, we want to make sure that there's emphasis on the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments and these Know Your Right workshops. As you guys are putting together your proposals for this RFP, we would also encourage for you to provide additional relevant information on workshops that maybe you're already hosting, which include cannabis, healthcare worker waivers, child support, navigating public benefits. These are all different benefits and areas that we like to make sure that residents are also knowledgeable of under Legal Justice Fund. So if your organization also hosts information on those, please make sure you put those in your proposal. And then continuing on, y'all, another requirement for this program of those that are awarded, the selected respondents will be required to distribute and collect surveys from the attendees of the Know Your Right workshops. The results of these surveys will be reported back to DFSS, and it is for ongoing evaluation of the program's effectiveness and for areas for us to improve and to be able to be informed by community feedback. As we were talking about the individuals on your team that are going to be working on this program, staff qualifications and training, community outreach staff and or community navigators should have formal ongoing training relevant to various legal education topics, as well as experience in presenting workshops to the public. So as we stated before, if you could demonstrate ongoing training with staff, and legal education and workshop topics such as cannabis law, expungement and sealing, interaction with the police, understanding your rights, and then of course, as well as presenting to public. What does your networks look like in presenting to the public, and what experience does your organization have with that? We do encourage a licensed attorney at law should create and review these workshop curriculum as necessary to be sure that it's up to date and accurate. Respondents should also make effort to hire bilingual staff and meet the needs of non-English speaking clients. All right, guys, so getting into the nitty gritty, to track progress towards achieving these outcome goals of this program, DFSS is going to monitor a set of annual outcome metrics that will include, but are not limited to at this time, 90% of Know Your Right workshop attendees report increased knowledge of legal remedies available for expungement and sealing. And again, all of this information is going to come to DFSS through those post Know Your Right workshop surveys. 90% of the workshop attendees report a better understanding of where and how to access legal services. And 90% of Know Your Right workshop attendees report a better understanding of their rights, including interacting with the police when navigating legal services. DFSS is very interested to know that residents have a better understanding and feel more secure in their rights leaving these workshops. So to monitor and recognize immediate progress towards the above performance indicators, we're also going to track annual output metrics that will include, but not limited to, a number of outreach and education events conducted by community area, the number of Know Your Right workshops conducted by community area, number of referrals made to legal justice funds, legal services, awarded organizations. And then, of course, we're going to also look at the number of surveys that have been distributed and returned. We are asking a minimum of 12,000 attendees for Know Your Right workshops are reached annually. Now, DFSS intends for the program to reach a minimum of 12,000 people through Know Your Right workshops. Respondents must include the total number of residents they intend to reach as part of your proposed program. So please, within your RFP, please make sure that you're showing us how your organization can reach 12,000 people through the year. DFSS encourages organizations that may not be able or have the capacity to reach 12,000 residents annually to consider partnering with another qualified organization. And please submit a joint proposal that demonstrates the collective capacity to meet the annual service goal. All right, we are going to go into the selection criteria, guys. These are going to be listed within the RFP, and stay with me. I am going to read these word for word to make sure that if you have any questions on what you should be responding to, it is listed here. So these are areas where we are looking for your community involvement. The respondent demonstrates a strong understanding of justice impacted populations served through this program, including the specific communities, demographic groups, geographic areas. The respondent plans to prioritize and is seeking to relieve barriers related to these criminal records, expungement, sealing, reentry, employment, housing, education, and legal system navigation, particularly looking at the south and west side of Chicago. So again, citywide, but we do have focus areas in the south and west side. The respondent demonstrates experience conducting community-based outreach and education efforts for justice-impacted populations, including information about the organization's existing partnerships, trusted relationships with community organizations, schools, shelters, libraries, workforce providers, faith-based organizations, and other community institutions. The respondent demonstrates a commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, linguistic responsiveness, includes staff and leadership that can reflect the community served. What we are looking for organizational capacity, guys, the respondent demonstrates the staffing structure and capacity the organization has to reach a citywide outreach and education initiative, including identified staff with experience in legal outreach, know your rights education, community engagement workshops, and or criminal justice related services. The respondents have adequate fiscal, administrative, and operational systems to support reimbursement-based funding, expenditure monitoring, subcontractor oversight, and compliance requirements. The respondent demonstrates secure and reliable data collection, reporting, confidentiality, and quality assurance practices, which includes timely submissions of required program metrics. And last but not least, respondent describes the organization's past experience providing outreach education, legal support related to criminal record relief. The important note on this one, guys, is to also include experience with expungement, sealing in those additional areas. So cannabis expungement, healthcare worker waivers, certificates of good conduct, know your right educations, the Illinois Clean Slate Act, including steps that your organization is taking to keep it up to date and accurate on legal information. And I will sum that up right there. Jen, we can go to the next. All right, guys, this one's a little wrong, but we want to make sure that you understand the strength of your proposed program. So within your RFP response, the respondent presents a comprehensive overview of your proposed outreach and education program model for this specific citywide program, which includes Know Your Right, workshops, educational strategies to organization plans to implement to increase awareness. Please include your Illinois Clean Slate implementation. What knowledge are you all putting out? What efforts have you made to educate residents on Clean Slate? And then how you propose to programs align with your goals, priorities, and requirements outlined in this RFP. A respondent clearly defines evidence-based, research-informed, or promising practices that inform proposed program models. Please include relevant research, evaluations, best practices related to legal outreach, education, reentry support, public engagement, and reducing barriers for justice-impacted populations. The respondent demonstrates an effective strategy for recruiting and engaging residents citywide, including how potential participants will be identified, and discuss the specific recruitment strategies and outreach locations your organization intends to serve. So specifically talking about those South and West Side locations, but make sure you're also including a citywide strategy plan as well. Respondents demonstrates partnerships and collaboration that strengthen outreach capacity, language access, or community trust. Respondent describes the anticipated number of outreach events, Know Your Right workshops, attendees reached, referrals made. Again, these are the metrics. Respondents should include the process to which the organization can meet a minimum delivery. And I am absolutely so sorry, y'all, that is a typo right there. It is not 8,000 Chicago residents, it is 12,000 Chicago residents. The respondent demonstrates understanding of the Illinois Clean Slate Act and proposes a strategy to educate residents on automatic sealing. Next slide, please. Okay, performance management and outcomes. The respondent demonstrates strong past performance and the ability to meet required reporting expectations when conducting outreach, workshops, legal education, reentry services, etc. If this is a new program model for you, the respondent should provide program level data demonstrating performance for a similar program, if applicable. The respondent demonstrates experience tracking performance metrics and outcome related to outreach participation, workshops, etc. The respondent demonstrates experience using this data to identify service gaps, improve outreach effectiveness, and strengthen participant engagement. And then also respondent demonstrates the ability for collecting post-workshop surveys, participant evaluations, or other feedback mechanisms to assess outreach and effectiveness. Respondents can explain how feedback findings, if any, were used to make programmatic adjustments or improve your future outreach and education efforts. When appropriate, DFSS may use prior performance data already collected by DFSS or a relevant intermediary, meaning just past program performance. Okay, guys, last but not least, reasonable cost, budget justification, and leverages of funds. The respondent demonstrates how the proposed budget aligns with their citywide program, which we'll see the budget in just a second, staffing structure, outreach goals, and performance expectations. The respondent's cost should be reachable and cost-effective given the scope of services and expected outcomes. Respondents should include any significant budget assumptions or specialized program costs and explain how resources are prioritized toward direct program implementation and community engagement activities. All right, evaluation process, guys. We're going to evaluate on the strengths of the proposal and the responsiveness to the selected criteria that we just walked through. Failure to submit a complete proposal or respond fully to all requirements may make your submission subject to rejection. The commissioner, upon review of recommended agencies, may reject, deny, or recommend agencies that have applied for grants based on previous performance and/or area need. DFSS reserves the right to ensure that all mandated services are available citywide and provided in linguistically and culturally appropriate manner. A quick outline of the timeline, guys. Today we are doing the pre-proposal webinar. If you have additional questions that we do not address today, those need to be emailed over to me, which my email will be made available by the end of this week, Friday, August 21st. Your application proposals, your submissions are due Wednesday, September 9th at 12 p.m. And Jillian is going to come back and talk a little bit more about that. And then this program, y'all, is set to begin January 1st, 2027. All right, budget and cost proposals. So this contract term is going to be from January 1st, 27, and will be 2 years ending December 31st, 2028. The amount for this RFP for 1 year can be up to $400,000. DFSS anticipates a total of $400,000 will be available for this program annually, and each award will be between $100,000 to $400,000 annually, depending on the size of your proposed program and the number of agencies awarded. DFSS intends to fund 1 to 3 agencies. Indirect costs will be capped at 15% unless otherwise indicated by a federally approved indirect cost rate letter. There is no match requirement for this program. Please submit a budget of 1 year and 12 months of service with your proposal. Cost category definitions are attached as budget instructions in every RFP. Be thoughtful and inclusive when developing your budget. Apply for your program's actual cost. We generally cannot give more money than what you ask. We use reasonable cost questions on the application to discuss how you determine costs reflected in the budget. I also want to note up there in the corner, DFSS may extend this term for up to 1 additional period, but not to exceed 1 year. So that's relating to the contract terms. It could be extended to December 31st, 2029, but would not be extended past that. Common mistakes, guys, that we see on budget. Fringes, please check your calculations. Supplies, these are frequently under or over budgeted for, so please make sure as you're talking about outreach, education, the materials that you need, be very thoughtful on your supplies. Client assistance, if there is an appropriate and allowable cost, don't forget to include it. Make sure your job description titles and your job description uploads have the same title. Also put a brief description of the job in the budget document itself if you have not discussed it specifically in your application so that we know what staff will be doing what. And show your match, which does not qualify for this program. Okay, guys, applications are due on Wednesday, September 9th at 12 p.m. noon Central Time. I'm going to pause right here and see if there are any questions that we can address now in the chat. Hi, Sarah. So there are no more zones. Yes. So for those that were working under the CJLSI, the last iteration of this program was called the Criminal Justice Legal Service Initiative. Such a mouthful. So we shortened it to CJLSI. That program was divided into 5 different zones across the city. We recognize that those 5 zones actually only covered 56 community areas. And we know that returning residents return to all areas of Chicago. So we are now conducting this program citywide with an emphasis on South and West Side community areas. I hope that that helps. Next question, is the expectation that each individual organization must hit 12,000 residents annually, or is this a collective goal sum across all awardees? it will be the total goal for the program is 12,000. If your organization has the capacity to reach 12,000 individuals, it will be upon one organization then to reach the 12. If we award more than one organization, the 12,000 will be divided up among those. Again, guys, we would encourage you to submit a joint application if 12,000 seems a little out of reach for your organization. In order to reach that 12,000, please submit a joint proposal. And I'm going to pass it, unless there are any other questions, I'm going to pass it back over to Jillian to go through more of the submission process.
Thank you, Sarah. And there will be another opportunity for us to answer any questions you may have during the webinar towards the end of the webinar. Going to start off with application tips. And our most important application tip that we can provide is to start your application yesterday. If you have never done business with the City of Chicago, please register into iSupplier as soon as possible. Remember to review the RFP narrative and application questions closely. They align exactly with the scope and the selection criteria. Please use the information in the RFP for guidance in formulating your answers. There is a 4,000 character limit, which includes punctuation and spaces. Each response is allotted 4,000 characters. And please do not use the back button on your browser while you're working on your application. And again, we can't stress it enough to start your application as soon as possible. So just some tips for working in e-procurement. To submit multiple applications for a single RFP, applicants will need to set up a unique user account in iSupplier. The e-procurement system is not capable of submitting more than one distinct proposal per associated email address. Therefore, you must use a separate email address for each submission. You can submit your application and later amend it up until the due date of September 9th at 12 noon. However, we strongly encourage you to avoid the rush and possible mishaps by submitting your application early. And plan on your submission taking approximately 30 to 60 minutes. Please be advised that late applications cannot be accepted, and we also cannot accept applications via email. All applications must be submitted via the iSupplier system. For assistance, you can make use of the e-procurement hotline at 312-744-4357. The hotline, the help desk can also be reached at customer support at cityofchicago.org. As far as the hotline, it operates during business hours only, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And again, we can't stress it enough. Save your application as often as you can while you're working on it. And again, submit early. New agency requirements. We require agencies to provide articles of incorporation and any amended articles of incorporation. We also require the IRS affirmation letter. Please note that the affirmation letter is for not-for-profit agencies only, and the letter must be dated within 60 days of your submission. You can obtain that letter by calling the IRS directly. Their number is listed on the screen. And however, if you are a for-profit agency, you can submit your original letter from the IRS showing your FEIN number. The UEI number for your agency is required, as well as the central contractor registration, which can be obtained from the entity overview page on the sound.gov website. And lastly, a certificate of good standing letter with the state of Illinois is also required. We have a labor peace agreement ordinance, which applies to all DFSS and CDPH delegates that have 20 or more agencies working for their organization. The only exemptions are hospitals. Contractor must provide written notice to the commissioner or her designee within 72 hours of becoming aware that employees want to organize or that a union seeks to represent employees. You may ask, what is a labor peace agreement? A labor peace agreement is an agreement between an employer and a labor union that ensures that an organizing drive is not impacted by union busting techniques, including employee retaliation. And in return, they will not strike or stop work in a way that will impact human services. For technical assistance, there is a link to the RFP on the DFSS webpage along with training documents. Please see the alert section on our website. And for questions on registration and e-procurement technical assistance for delegate agencies, again, you can reach out to customer support at cityofchicago.org. And you can also contact the help desk. The number is listed on the screen. We also have training materials online, which includes documents and videos. Those can be accessed on the cityofchicago.org website under online training materials. At this time, we're going to delve into how to answer your responses and how to accept amendments. So to answer your response, step one, you must create the quote from the drop-down menu in the actions box, and then you click on go, and that will take you to the application page where you can get started. If the RFP you are interested in has been amended, and in this case it will be, you will need to acknowledge that amendment and accept it to start or submit your response. To accept the amendment, you click on View Amendment History. Circle here. Next, to begin the acceptance and acknowledgement process, you must follow these steps after clicking View Amendment History. First, you click on the document number. Next, you click on the infinity or eyeglass icon to review the amended changes to the RFP. And then you click on Acknowledge Amendments button to acknowledge receipt and understanding of the changes and proceed. And by acknowledging the amendment, you are indicating that you are aware of any changes made to the RFP or any questions and answer portion to the amendment. You are also acknowledging that you've seen it. When you get to the screen, you click on the I accept checkbox and then you click on acknowledge. Then you click on yes to indicate that you confirm your acknowledgement of the amendment. Finally, you click on the checkbox that you accept the terms and conditions, and then you click on accept to accept them. And that is the final step in acknowledging and accepting the amendment. Now, once the amendment has been accepted and acknowledged, you can move forward with submitting your application, which we will delve into right now. So the first step in submitting your application, when you are ready to submit, meaning that you've answered all required questions, you've attached all required documentation, you can start by saving your draft one last time and clicking continue. If you are missing information, you will be given an error message at the top of the screen, similar to what you see here. And usually the error message directs to something left undone in your application. So in that last example, the error message indicated that the lines found under the Lines tab had not been completed. In the example listed here, the error is about an unanswered question in the application or requirement section. And the quote value refers to your, in this case, missing answer. So once your application is free from errors, you are then ready to proceed and submit. And at that point, click and continue should put your application into the review and submit phase. When you see this screen, this is like a summary screen, and this is also your last chance to review all of your data and to confirm that everything is accurate prior to submission. So please use that opportunity to check your attachments and scroll to the bottom of the screen to see all of your responses. At the very bottom of that screen, you will be asked to provide an electronic signature. So please be sure to fill in a signature before checking the box. Once you check the box, you can then click submit. Once you submit your application, you will receive a submission confirmation screen similar to what you see here. The e-procurement system will also send a confirmation email within 24 hours of your submission. So please feel free to call or email me if you desire confirmation prior to then. Again, my name is Jillian Black. I am the procurement proposal coordinator, and my email is listed here. At this time, we're going to take any questions that might have come through after our first pause.
There are no additional questions at this time, Jillian.
Okay. Please note that there is still time to ask your questions. Those questions can be sent to Sarah. Her email and contact information is on the screen. And for any non-programmatic questions, if you have any issues with e-procurement, if you want to confirm that we received your submission, you can email me. But as far as non-programmatic questions, I think the best place to ask those questions will be our supplier customer support, and their contact information is on the screen as well. So before we close out, Sarah, is there anything you want to add?
No, thank you all for attending today, and happy proposal submission, guys. We appreciate you.
Thank you all for attending our webinar, and enjoy the rest of your day, and good luck. Thank you.